All right, let's get right into it. We all make hundreds of tiny choices every single day, and most of them we don't even think about. But what if some of those little moments, what if they're the seeds of our biggest successes or our most epic failures? Today, we're going to unpack how a simple 5-second pause can literally change everything.
And this quote right here, this is really the heart of it all. Big problems, huge disasters, they almost never start with someone saying, let's mess this up. No, they start with these 4 little words. This is probably fine. It's that quiet voice that justifies a shortcut or lets a tiny oversight slide.
So let's just call it what it is. It's the probably fine problem. And it's this hidden danger that's lurking in all those small split-second decisions we make when we're under pressure.
What's so wild about this is how it completely flips the script on how we think about failure. We're always looking for that one big mistake, right? That one smoking gun. But the truth is, the real culprit is usually a whole chain of tiny choices that nobody ever stopped to question.
And it's no wonder this happens. When you think about the world most of us work in, decisions have to be made fast. A lot of the time, you're on your own. You're racing against the clock. And in that kind of environment, nobody's giving out gold stars for pausing to think. The whole culture rewards momentum. Just keep moving, get it done. The problem is that momentum can carry you right past a cliff.
So let's look at how this all builds up. Because these little things, they don't just happen once and disappear. Oh no, they have this nasty habit of stacking up, of compounding over time.
And this right here is the really crucial part. That one little unclear choice you make on a Tuesday, it can become the unspoken rule everyone's following by Friday. That assumption you made to save 5 minutes, well now it's just the default procedure. And before you know it, these invisible defaults are quietly running the whole show, steering you straight towards an accident, a product failure, or one of those awful how did we get here meetings 6 months from now.
In fact, some governance research out of Harvard lays out this pattern perfectly. It starts with one small decision that feels totally harmless. Then it gets repeated over and over, and no one ever checks if it's still a good idea. Pretty soon, it just becomes how we do things around here. It's totally normal. And the last step? Everyone is completely shocked when the bad thing finally happens.
And that's exactly why it's so tough to fix. By the time you actually see the crack in the wall, the memory of all those tiny choices that weakened the foundation is long gone. The decision trail has gone cold. It's almost impossible to trace the problem back to where it all began.
So what do we do? How do we break this cycle? Well, it takes a real, deliberate mental shift. We have to go from making decisions on autopilot to making them with actual intention.
Just look at this comparison. Our automatic autopilot brain says, it's just a small thing. But our intentional brain stops and asks, hang on, if everyone did this every single time, would I like that outcome? Instead of just saying, this is how we usually do it, you ask, am I actually choosing this, or am I just falling into a habit? That's the difference between just letting things happen and taking ownership. And you know what the best part is? This isn't about grinding everything to a halt for some big, long meeting. It's not about slowing down the work at all. It's about slowing down your judgment for just 5 seconds. That's it. 5 seconds to ask a better question. Okay, so let's get really practical here. I'm going to give you a simple 3-question field check that you can use in any high-pressure situation to make those 5 seconds really, really count. Because that's the whole point, right? How do you cut through all the noise and identify those small decisions that are secretly the big ones in disguise? So question number 1 you ask yourself is this decision repeatable? Think of it like a stress test. If I do this, are other people going to see it and copy me? And if 100 people start copying this exact same shortcut, does that still lead to a good place, or does it accidentally create a massive systemic problem?
Question 2, is it reversible? In other words, how hard is it to undo this if I realize I messed up? Some decisions are like writing in a notebook with a pencil, super easy to erase. But others are like carving in stone. You've got to know which kind of decision you're making before you make it.
And finally, question 3, is this decision visible later? Even if nobody sees me make this choice right now, will the consequences, the results of it, show up for the customer? Will it affect the final quality? Will it impact safety down the line? This question connects what you're doing right now to the final outcome.
And the rule here is incredibly simple. If the answer is yes to any of those 3 questions, ding, 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 that is not a small decision. That's your signal to stop, pause, and give that moment the attention it truly deserves. And you see this kind of stuff every day. Skipping a pressure test because, hey, the system looks good. not bothering to document a tiny little change, using a workaround just this one time. Every single one of these feels so minor in the moment, but they're all repeatable, they're all hard to reverse, and their consequences are definitely visible later. These aren't just tasks, they're critical decision points.
Now, once you start using this little check, it's more than just a tool. It really becomes a professional advantage. It actually changes the way you and your whole team operate.
This is what good actually looks like. Problems get caught when they're small and cheap to fix. You see fewer safety issues, fewer accidents, you spend way less time and money on rework, and maybe, most importantly, your team feels way more confident and empowered because they're not just blindly following rules, they're using their professional judgment.
And let's be absolutely crystal clear about what this is and what it isn't. This framework does not add red tape. It doesn't take away your autonomy or replace your years of experience with some dumb checklist. It's the exact opposite. It amplifies your experience. It trains your gut to notice when a moment really matters, and it helps you recognize and step up to your responsibility.
So, I'm going to leave you with this one last thought. Small decisions aren't really small at all. They're just early. They're the very first step on a long, long road. And being able to see that, to catch those moments when they're still small, that's what separates the amateurs from the true professionals. So the only question left is, which road are your small decisions putting you on?